Hello, everyone, and welcome to Layer by Layer, the show about 3D printing and our place inside the industry. Today, we're going to talk about Caracle 3D printing and the onslaught of the Christmas season and how to get your Etsy business up and rolling. But before that, we can go ahead and pay the bills. Today's episode is brought to you by the Slant 3D Etsy and Shopify plugin. The Shopify and Etsy plugin lets you get access to our giant 3D print farm so that you do not have to run your own printer during the busy season of Christmas. Many stores are going on vacation or taking a break about December 5th, but by using Slant 3D plugin, your store active the whole season, doubling your revenue and keeping all of your customers happier so that no customer comes to your store and sees you out of stock. You access the Slant 3D print farm at Shopify at slantpod.com and sign up for any of those new things. First bit of news coming up here. The Caracoal AM to launch its first metal 3D printer at Formnext 2024. Let me double check stuff, make sure we're all doing what we expect to be doing over here. Actually, before I dive into that particular story. There we go. Yeah, we're all right. All right. Caracle 321. There we are. U.S. Italian original equipment manufacturer of large format systems has announced the launch of the company's first metal printer, Vipra AM. A directed energy deposition system. It will debut at Formnext 2024 in Frankfurt on November 19th through 22nd. Viper AM comes in two different configurations, each emphasizing a different set of strengths. Extreme quality, or like aerospace parts, and extreme productivity is better suited for aluminum and nickel alloys and is opted for use cases where throughput rate is the priority. In both cases, customers can rely on the same attention to quality control and ease of use. The exactly released precisely because of how meticulous and deliberate Caracle is about a product. Okay, fine. Yeah, Caracle, if you haven't seen them before, they're used by guys like Dive Designs. Watch some cool content of the machines in action. That's the one. They have a space down in Austin and obviously in Italy. But they basically have a robot arm with the actual extrusion mechanism on the end of the robot arm. That's how they do it. They have had pellet-driven systems historically, which have been used for furniture and facades and that kind of thing. Typical large format use cases, which have been really good. But going into metal is fine. My takeaway from this is that this is a very traditional kind of 3D printing company outcome, where they are diversifying rather than deepening. Effectively, there is not enough demand for the pellet-based systems to where they now want to introduce metal-based systems. That's fine, and that's what every 3D printing company ends up doing, but the problem is you have this very thin layer of solutions. So Desktop Metal does this. Formlabs is now doing this. Not so much. But there's so little on the core technology that they get some sort of mandate to where the necessity to diversify comes in. So Caracle doing metal looks cool and good, but it is indicative of lack of demand for the pellet systems that are enough to justify the growth of the company. So that is not good. And as far as the competitive landscape, there are a lot of DED welders on the end of robot arms out there, and it's also difficult to not have that commoditized. I also think the photo in this image might be wrong. It looks like an array machine, not the Caracle machine. But there is that. Let's check in on chat, see how we are doing here. I'm going to check in chat from a different spot too, because I kind of don't trust this particular. I don't trust the YouTube Studio app on all this stuff. Let's go down here. Guys, we're going to figure out a way pretty much every week because we want to make sure that we're helping out on 3D printer plugins and that kind of stuff if anybody has them. Let's see. Okay, there. Cool. That's live. Oh, wow. Yeah, the chat is not showing up in my admin view over there. There we go. All right. I'm going to take a quick break to talk about chat before we go into the next news story. Da, 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 da. How's it we doing here? Video went out again. The video rate might, yeah, the connection there. Okay. Okay. I think that's mainly the network connection on this system. Okay. Good to know. We're going to keep on rolling through it. I am also filming this on main one. We'll repost it with the actual stuff. But the main role of this this show, oh wow, yeah, that does turn out bad. It's cutting off. Okay. Roland, I understand. Let me do one thing. I'll just check it's the actual camera gear. I'm gonna make a few other tweaks here. We'll repost the full show later on. And then we'll revamp with the network system on the next time around. You know, this is like a traditional MVP situation. It's up, it's live, it's doing something, it is functionally there. It's just not good yet, and it's feature limited. This is hilarious, because I'm watching the live stream over here, and it's fine. And then I'm watching the admin panel over here, and it's still loading, which is hilarious. All right, fine. Anyhow, we'll get that through here. We're gonna figure out how to get this done, because like I say, we're gonna do this for the next few weeks. We're gonna be doing live streams pretty much the whole Christmas season. Number one, to learn how to do the live streams well so that they're useful to everybody. But also as a way to engage with you guys more directly. Because right now during the Christmas season, having a very live and a very close contact with me and with the team is really important to us. Because as we're building out like the Shopify plugins and the Etsy plugin and so on and so forth, and Teleport, which is coming out here next week, we want to make sure that you can get at us really easy. So this is a way of doing that as we get used to it all. Also, to be fair, in this context of like YouTube content, we've been having the discussion of how do we scale up content reliably. And basically we need to reduce the amount of editing per video so that we can increase the number of videos or change the format so that it's more reliable. And that has all, audio's gone, we're gonna make it. Okay. International farms. We are working on international farms. The value of the international farm is the fact that you effectively get to teleport stuff from, and it creates a lot of interesting dynamics in that regard around transport of stuff. Other news. Moving into the next piece of news. One more. One here. We go. There wasn't a lot of news this week. There were a few, there was the Caracle stuff, there were some funding announcements, that kind of stuff. Everybody's getting ramped up for FormNext over in Frankfurt. So everybody has these machine announcements, and it's like, oh my gosh, this 3D printer company released a 3D printer, and you're like, no way! So the news isn't great. So like 3D Systems has new SLA machines. Formlabs launches new resins, yada yada, the DED stuff, American Mix. Wow. Stratasys had a software release to turn waste PA powder into stuff. That's not a big deal. Again, every powder machine manufacturer eventually releases some stuff. 3D printed gun component. Oh, this is interesting. So 3D Printer OS and Montclair State University to develop algorithm capable of identifying 3D printed gun parts. This is per TCT. They're working with the Mix Lab to develop an algorithm that can identify 3D printed gun parts. Additively manufactured firearms remain a concern for law enforcement organizations. 3D printed firearms can be used in a range of crimes. Yeah. In response to these ongoing challenges, Montclair and 3DOS are working to leverage advanced algorithms to detect and classify 3D printed gun parts to better ensure better tracking and management. I believe the partnership's okay. I don't know what relevance this has. 3D Printer OS is a software that runs groups of 3D printers. So yes, they can build it into their system to where printers on their system work with that. And they have a decent number of machines on their network per their website there. But it's kind of irrelevant because you go buy an off-the-shelf machine, which is what 3D Printer OS runs, like FDM style machines and that kind of thing. So it is fairly. It doesn't do much to stop it. No one would be able to print a gun part on the 3D Printer OS system, which fine, it's not going to be printed out in a college printer lab or something else along those lines. But it's kind of irrelevant in the rest of the world and in the context of 3D printed gun parts. That all being said, guys, the conversation around 3D printed gun parts is wildly overhyped and overconsidered. Because in this context, CNC machines and means by which to make a gun have been way more readily available than people realize. They do require skill, and arguably more skill than a 3D printer. But at the same time, the 3D printed gun parts, actually, I'm not going to go too far down the road on this part of the discussion, but because I don't want this video to get dinged by YouTube. There are, what can I hit on this? They've been able to be made in many different ways. 3D printers open it up a little bit more, but 3D printers aren't good enough right now. And the amount of skill needed to print a good gun part, it's more valuable to stop this at like the repo level where you don't have gun parts on 3D printing repos. And that would stop the dangerous individual from getting stuff. But it does not stop anyone else who is responsible or interested in the hobby. But anyway, okay, let's see here. Other news. Boy, there's not a lot of news. Yes, defense contractors are doing stuff, yada, 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 yada. Let's go right here. FlashForge. Okay. FlashForge is releasing an 85X, an all-in-one 3D printer with built-in filament changer. So they're basically their AMS machine, which is based off of the 5M series. Let's see here. Yes, sales, Black Friday, all the things. My goodness, there are a lot of ads on 3D printing websites. Let me check one thing here. Okay. I'm trying to get, yes, okay. On the 3D Printer OS story, they say they have developed the algorithm to identify it. Fine, but again, it's located, I'm going to assume, purely on their network. I'm going to see if this other story has more info on it here. MixLab. Well, they're working on it. That title slightly overhyped it. Okay, never mind. Researchers advance new joining technology using 3D printing. Okay, according to Texas A&M, researchers have significantly improved a new joining technology, interlocking meta surfaces using 3D printing. In collaboration with Sandia National Labs, strength and stability of a structure in comparison to the traditional techniques like bolts and adhesives using shape memory alloys and offer the potential to transform stuff. So they are printing, this is a traditional sort of 3D printing application where you can do complex geometry. This is an expansion to the live stream format and sometime in the future. I'll share my screen one of these days. But they're looking at basically these complex structures that are able to interlock and then move around. So the shape memory alloys are able to lock into each other as you press the two pieces together. And it's a geometry that 3D printing is uniquely able to create and that hasn't historically really been available before. So that's that story. But again, it's not a big stretch or necessarily terribly interesting announcement in that regard. Let's see here. But it's eco-friendly. Oh, this is an editorial from Voxel Matters. Uh, the inconvenient truth about ecology and 3D printing with bioplastics. I don't need to read the article here. Okay, so the conversation around 3D printing, sustainability, ecology, that kind of stuff. The 3D printing is wildly more green than other manufacturing technologies for the very simple fact that 3D printing eliminates somewhere between 15 and 25% of waste if it's used in an on-demand capacity. So right now, if you look at the Star Wars toys on the shelves coming in for Christmas, about 15 to 25% of those will go unsold because stores can't go out of stock, so they overproduce. 3D printing is able to eliminate that. Now, at the manufacturing level, the waste products of 3D printing, reject prints, spools, support material. Support material is eliminated through better design. Most people just, right now, support material exists because people are bad at product design of 3D printed parts. As far as the spools are either reusable in a mass production context and not really that large of a component of the waste of consumer 3D printing. And consumer 3D printing is not a large plastics consumer in the context of plastic consumption. So it's not really irrelevant, or really relevant. But as far as the reject parts, the reject parts can be reground, but again, there are scale restrictions to it, to where the equipment for washing, cleaning, regrinding, mixing, maintaining, and ensuring no intermixing of 3D printed parts, that infrastructure is large and expensive, and there is not enough 3D printer waste to justify it in many cases. Even here at Slant 3D, we have a lot of kind of minimum volumes in order to have recycling of stuff that a lot of projects don't meet the criterion of. So the overall amount of waste inside of 3D printing is still so small. It seems big to the 3D printing community, but the 3D printing community is itty bitty. The 3D printing industry is teeny, teeny, tiny. The 3D printing industry is $10 billion, which is $20 billion with all the materials, all the machines, all of the consumption inside of it is $10 billion, which means that $1 to $2 billion of it is the materials itself, and most of the rest of the revenue is from selling of the machines. That's so tiny compared to the amount of plastic production, which is $1 to $2 trillion per year globally, that we're 100,000th of plastic problems, if even that. And the amount of plastic waste that we generate is not large compared to other plastic industries. So anyhow, let's see here. Let's check in on chat here just real fast. Given the upcoming changes in economic conditions, tariffs imposed, do you see Slant 3D as being able to capitalize from local production standpoint? Non-political. Yeah, for anybody watching, the U.S. had an election last year. So, tariffs and local production. Here's the thing. Tariffs are irrelevant in the dynamics of 3D printing because if you look at long-term views of the industry, 3D printing has no tooling and effectively should be automated if you're doing large-scale production correctly. It shouldn't be a labor cost situation. In that case, the last cost to a customer that can vary is distance traveled, shipping costs. So if the shipping costs are now variable, the person who wins, or the primary variable, the person who wins is the one closest to the customer. So regardless of tariffs or anything else, Chinese manufacturing has to cross an ocean, go through warehousing, takes time and money to get there, whereas we can print and ship within our local area, local continent, more quickly. Therefore, I've never cared about tariffs because it's more about the time saved and the shipping costs saved. Tariffs will contribute to that a bit, but it won't be a big deal. In the context of tariffs, my opinion on tariffs is I'm not necessarily protectionist about it, but when you have Chinese goods being subsidized by the Chinese government, which has gone radically into debt in order to achieve that, in order to grab the market, having us impose tariffs on external goods is not really unreasonable because it relevels the field again back to what the actual cost of the product was. Now, you don't want companies in the US to get lazy around that, but the companies have used the ultra low Chinese goods as an excuse to be lazy. So US companies, manufacturing companies have said, it's so cheap from China, we're not going to try to compete. Whereas right now, if the cost of Chinese goods increase, US companies could say, well, Chinese company goods are as expensive as ours, therefore we're not going to compete. So this is more of kind of a philosophical problem of like, how do organizations respond to it? Because whenever people talk to me about like international shipping and that kind of stuff, and oh, it's cheaper to manufacture outside, I point to Tesla. Tesla has a very profitable organization manufacturing cars in one of the most unprofitable states in the country, California. And they're doing fine. And they could go cheaper, and they're going to go cheaper. So the whole excuse of Chinese goods being too cheap has never made sense to me, because like even what we've done with Tangled, I'm like, yes, we can match them and we can still maintain decent margins and profitable margins inside of it. So it's never been relevant to me. As far as the tariffs themselves, engaging with the economic ramifications of those tariffs, yes, they create an inflationary pressure. The presumption on like the conservative side of that is that those tariffs, yes, go to the government, but then the government actually sends them back around. Tariffs are not a very conservative type of idea because they are effectively a tax on goods, but they're a tax on external goods so that internal manufacturing can catch up. That's the theory. But I'm surprised that like liberals and Democrats don't prefer tariffs because they're effectively another tax that should theoretically go into government programs such as childcare and welfare and that kind of thing, to where those should be useful. So I think Democrats don't like tariffs because they're protectionist, and it's also Trump's idea. Even though they're an action that is kind of more democratic because it's effectively a tax increase and a way for the government to make more money. While it also has kind of conservative and Republican economic ramifications in the current state of the world. But that's my observation from it. I don't think it affects us organizationally. Speaking of spools, are you still low as you have some Slant 3D spools I couldn't drop by your farm? We are not taking reused spools anymore. So I appreciate having them drop by, but number one, our farm isn't open to the public, unfortunately. We take our client protection really seriously, so we don't allow people to wander in. But for why we're not taking reused spools anymore, in a production process, you have to go for very high consistency. When Tangled was totally new and we were kind of slopping around figuring out what we were going to do, this, that, and the other thing, it was really important to figure out what worked and what didn't. And reused spools was one of those experiments because it did reduce the cost of the spool, but for the amount of back-end shenanigans that it would cause from random spools showing up, random spools not fitting, so on and so forth, having to rejigger the process for these spools, washing them, cleaning them, putting stickers over them, that creates more effort. Even though the cost of the item is less, the extra effort it created was more. So if we're trying to reduce the cost of filament, it's not really useful. Recycled spools are difficult because there's still not a standardization throughout the industry. I would say that is changing because bamboo has so drastically come through and had so many people change stuff. And since they have their weird little spool, that might become standard. But I know that like in the US, a lot of spool manufacturers are hesitating to cut the mold for bamboo style spool which is weird, and I don't know why, but I know that 3D printing filament manufacturers don't make a ton of filament. So they're like, you keep on using your welding spools. We just had this issue the other day. We were ordering new spools for Tangled, for the temp Tangled until we get to spoolless. And it's just such a disconnect between what we want and need and what they're willing to do. And we're revisiting, should we design our own spool again? But I don't want to, guys. We've got too much stuff going on. We had it all planned out, but it's great to plan stuff out, but then you realize, this is not an effective use of time in the context of things that we could be doing. I wouldn't be worried about machine costs since you aren't buying them every month, but they can mass import replacement parts for US fulfillment. Might see an increase on filament costs more, maybe. Oh, filament costs would certainly go up from the tariffs, I would imagine. Though at the same time, there's things that fall through the cracks on that. Filament dropping over the last few years certainly has been due to both the COVID hype dying down to where filament was able to cut up. There's much more filament supply now. I mean, like Polymaker opened up a US facility here just in the last few months. And the tariffs coming back would also increase international filament. Don't matter to us, though. Making our own stuff. Tesla moved to outside Austin. They moved their headquarters to outside Austin. Tesla still has the Fremont factory fully operational inside of California. The Gigafactory in Austin though is cool. If you ever have a chance to go by a Gigafactory, it's a fun thing to drive past because it takes a couple of minutes to drive past it. When I was down at the Austin one, it's just a cool structure from the outside. Let's see here. If anyone can think of such items that would be subject to tariffs that can be printed here and compete, let me know. Dr. Lester the Smith. So don't think about that way. If your competitive advantage is around cost, you're missing the boat already because you won't be sustainable. When creating any organization, making your competitive advantage cost is almost always wrong. There's very few situations where it's not. And if you are competing on cost, you have to have an expertise in cost reduction that is radically ahead of everybody else. So like in startup land, people say your product has to be 10 times better than somebody else's in order to be useful or to be interesting. You have to have a roadmap to make cost 10 times less than your competitor in order for it to be compelling. So you have to be looking at vacuum tubes and say, okay, I'm going to make transistors, that kind of thing. I know this is weird coming from me around Tangled, but Tangled for us has efficiencies outside of actual Tangled itself to where we do have 1 to 2, 3x returns over long term for it to where we do know how to cost reduce in that direction of like, we can add in another extruder that reduces the cost by half, so on and so forth. So we can take these big bites out of it. We know where to source material for a penny a pound, that kind of thing. Those are all things that we know about because we have deep technical expertise in manufacturing. If creating a product, the way you want to differentiate it is that product better or is your means of marketing or distribution better? As in, I know the buyer at Walmart and he'll buy all my fidget dragons from me. Or I know TikTok really well, so I can market it better. Because when you have a commodity, the competitive advantage then becomes brand. Like Nike manufactures shoes that are worth $10, but because they put the swoosh on the side, they're now worth $200. That is what you want to do when designing products, especially if you're in a commoditized space. So like the fidget dragons and that kind of stuff. Fidget dragons are such an interesting concept to me because everybody's like, they sell so much. And they do. But the vast majority of the ones I've seen who are selling them well are doing them in a retail environment, as in like shows and that kind of thing. Online, unless you're good at TikTok, you're not selling very many fidget dragons because they're a commodity now. But if you can find that entertainment niche or capability, then it becomes much more interesting. Okay. Except that Tesla is moving much of their manufacturing to Texas, but point is taken, they're paying the Silicon Valley salary for the engineering. No. Austin, Texas, very expensive. And it is not $15 an hour labor there inside the factories. A Tesla tech is making 25 plus probably in either Fremont or Austin, at least, because that's just the cost of living over there. So no, there is not, I don't think Austin, Texas is a lower cost environment than Fremont, California. I'm pretty sure it's not. Story/show suggestion: how orders are connected to the printers and flowed through the warehouse. Actually, we're working on this. But again, it comes down to like a component of user privacy. We cannot film in the factory if there is a part from a client running on the machine. So we have to print our own stuff or like grab a section of the factory to do our own stuff. Otherwise, we end up doing like what we did at the April Fool's video, which is just blurring everything. So filming inside of the factory is actually really difficult because we take our user privacy really, really seriously. Like we don't let people inside the factory and we don't film when there's items that could give away stuff there. I won't sell dragons online. Yeah, I was at an event the past weekend and sold about $600 worth of them. Yeah, that's the story that I hear most of the time. My advantage is around being able to design functional devices really well for 3D printing. What would you recommend in that space? Accessories, phone accessories, desk accessories, bathroom accessories, house accessories, home accessories, tool accessories, shop accessories. Anything that organizes, stores, holds, connects, stacks, protects, contains items for some brand. Look at a Makita drill. Figure out how to store up some batteries in a cool way. Put a handle on them. That kind of stuff. Accessories, accessories, accessories. Accessories are underutilized right now in 3D printing. It's a hugely valuable market that people don't latch onto because the reason it's so great is because you get to latch onto a brand that other people trust. So it's like, I made an iPhone case. Oh, iPhone. You get to ride off of that traffic, that fandom. Accessories solve a problem for the user, and accessories are highly mixed. So you're able to do what 3D printing does best, which is create items that are really original and unique and high selection without having to cut a whole bunch of molds for them. So you can do accessories better than accessory companies. And it is astoundingly frustrating to me that people have not caught on to this truth of the business model right now. The accessories market is built on low-cost aluminum molds and creating a lot of variations. Those molds are millions of dollars every year, maybe billions of dollars every year. Who knows? But they're not necessary because printing can do it just as well. And again, you don't even have to get the factory now. You can just be a designer and plug us into your system. And then you have a giant factory to support you. You have an AWS of manufacturing and back end to where you get to design the apps, which are the accessory 3D models, verify them out on your home printer, which is like your computer running an emulator of an Android phone. And then you upload the file and then anybody who wants it can buy it and we print and ship it for you. You don't even have to build the infrastructure anymore. The amount of the amount of lost opportunity, especially since, well, I'm going to say we came on the scene because nobody else has done it as seamlessly as we have, not even close. We're waiting for it to gel, but designers should stop selling their designs as readily and start selling the real prints because content through like TikTok and that kind of stuff makes these so relevant to people and they can't get a hold of it. A designer posts a 3D print of a cool fidget toy and everybody says, this is amazing, where can I buy it? And the designer has Etsy stores that have licensed the model messaging inside the thing. There's missing an opportunity here. I think that like commercial licenses for 3D models will start to go away because number one, they lose control of their IP. As soon as somebody has the STL, it's on the internet. So it's really dangerous for designers and they get into this rat race where they have to continually create new models in order to keep their subscription relevant. But all their old models and old IP becomes useless as soon as they give it out because the STL is in the wind. So the dynamics of design of 3D models will likely change into the future when it's realized that it's more valuable to sell the product than the designs of the product. Now, this will vary a little bit based on how much consumer 3D printing continues to grow and people who like doing that. So 3D model creation is just like content creation. We got to keep on feeding the beast, and we're okay with that. So continually creating new 3D models might be fine for some people, the way continually creating new YouTube videos is fine for some people. But yeah, the dynamics are just odd and are going to continue to change. French cleat holders. Yeah, do a bunch of those. The French cleats are popular right now. It's, yes, accessories, woodworking tools. The woodworking tools are a big opportunity inside of 3D printing because so many woodworkers have a 3D printer and are transitioning, and the woodworking hobby is about 10 times the size of the 3D printing hobby. So it is a market that 3D printing is able to expand into now. Are phone cases that durable if they are that thin in the case of 3D printing? You can design good phone cases. That's perfectly doable. In fact, if you want to see like some good examples of like 3D printed phone cases, what's the phone company name? No. They make the headphones. Oh, I can't even think of their name right now. Somebody in the chat. Tell me what is the name of the phone company with the glyphs on the back. Nothing. There we go. The Nothing phone company. They had the phone, their Nothing One phone or whatever it was, where they had 3D printed cases done on the back. It was a brilliant integration. It was with Bamboo Lab. Nothing. It was an integration with Bamboo Lab and Nothing, which are two companies that are very complementary to each other because they both care about design and user experience a lot. So it made a lot of sense. But look at that competition. There were 5 to 10 really, really good designs of phone cases in that. Well, in this case, it was for the whole back cover, but you can do them as phone cases. The thing with 3D printed phone cases is that everybody ends up making them very, very chunky without adding utility to that chunkiness. So there's ways of dealing with this, like tricks, where you could like create a phone case that is a wallet so that you can use the chunkiness to actually store something and the printer can still handle it. A lot of people try to make these, yes, really thin phone cases that don't have any utility. And since they're really thin, yes, they're not good with 3D printing. So there's those types of concerns. CAD skills are the new oil. CAD skills are the new programming. While the developers are getting replaced by AI, CAD is still challenging for AI, though not as challenging as people think. If you are able to speak precisely, you can do CAD right now with AI tools. Setting up on my Etsy and plugging in, see how it goes. Hey, cool, thanks, Dr. Lester the Smith. Yeah, with the Etsy and the Shopify plugin, this is the first time I'm ever going to say this, and actually this goes into our discussion topic of like what we're working on. Here at Christmas season, our main and only priority is making sure that client orders through the plugins are going out quickly. Right now, the maximum time on those is about 3 business days, which is great because we say it's 5 business days, but we haven't hit that at all with anybody. The average is closer to like 2.25 or so right at the moment. So they're shipping very quickly, and we want to maintain that all the way through Christmas. Throughout Christmas, everything goes bananas. So literally the day after the election here in the United States, demand and traffic on Etsy effectively doubled. Generally that happens on November 1st of each year, but since there was an election this year, they pushed it back. If you are on Etsy right now, turn on your ads. Turn on your advertising. Please, 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 please turn on your advertising. It will work for you. I can guarantee it. I can't guarantee it, but it probably will. You have an above 80% chance that ads will increase your sales on Etsy as of 2 days ago going forward, because we have a lot of data on this from a lot of Etsy stores plugged into us and our own and all the rest of it. Turn on your ads. But anyhow, demand spikes drastically right now. So all of our focus is on print on demand and e-commerce. We don't really do very much with production clients at this time of the year. And then, so we're maintaining that. However, the software team isn't really packing boxes. So they've been working on some stuff. We have Project Teleport, which has been in the works for a bit now. Project Teleport is 10 times better than any of our other plugins, because Teleport is How much can I say? How much am I allowed to say? It connects everywhere. There's no longer individual plugins. Everything goes through Teleport. It is also the cleanest, best UI we've made. It's the best software product that we've made, I think. It's releasing next week. Here's the thing. We're not going to open it up for wide release. There's going to be a limited number of users on it because, this is probably going to start to apply to all of our plugins. We're going to start having an onboarding kind of a process where a user is vetted, approved, and guided through the whole opening thing. Because even though we have slantpod.com that has endless numbers of content and questions and an AI chatbot that answers questions for you, all the things, finding information is still challenging to where having a discussion with a person is better. So onboarding to Teleport and that kind of thing will likely be like on the phone to where we'll walk you through it because we want people to be successful with it and hit all the things. And we've noticed with this, with like the Shopify plugin, there's just weirdness that Shopify requires that is causing friction on that to where people aren't enjoying the experience of setting up the app. It feels intimidating. And you never want a software product to feel intimidating, even when it's a B2B product like this. The best example of an onboarding process with actually, I don't have a good example for a B2B thing, but I can tell you a bad example. Facebook ads. Facebook ads are, well, no, there's two coins of Facebook ads. There's boost your post in Facebook ads, which is stupidly easy where you just say, spend $15, show this to people. And that's fantastic. But then the actual Facebook ads dashboard where you have to set up a Facebook business page and then your Instagram and then you put in a pixel and you turn it on and then you try to find keywords. And there's no information out there that's topical because it changes every 6 weeks. The Facebook ads dashboard is the worst advertising platform that I've ever engaged with personally. If somebody wants a really good software product, put a wrapper around that that's actually useful. But anyhow, let's see here. Chat questions. Anything here? I was thinking of using the plugin as well. I do my own design and don't even want the hassle of trying to sell stuff unless the time expenses are near zero. The time expenses are not near zero. If you go on Etsy, you're required to respond to messages within 24 hours in order to maintain a certain status. Otherwise, they start deprecating you. And this includes on the weekends, by the way, which is some BS on Etsy's part. The fact that they're using their sellers as customer support and punishing them if they don't respond on the weekends. I understand it from an internet e-commerce standpoint, but from a user-generated content platform, that'd be some BS. But this is why we built like the plugin and stuff. Because if you wanted a zero time investment, if you were designing stuff, packing, shipping, and printing things is not a zero time investment. And then again, you have to ship items on time. So yes, this is all an ad for our plugin. Use the plugin. The reason we built it is because it's so cumbersome and so miserable to set up shipping, learn how to ship, find boxes, keep labels, know what the label printer is, run printers, change the nozzles. What is the good printer this week? What's good quality? That's all on us now so that other people can focus on the product itself and creating good 3D printed products. Because the only thing stopping 3D printing from taking over the world is the fact that there are not enough good 3D printed products out there or the distribution of them. So yes, that's why we built the plugin. So hopefully it becomes so frictionless to create cool stuff that more people can create cool stuff. And it's stupidly exciting to us too, because like we always think about it like the internet is so nifty because a kid in a dorm room can create an app that can become $1 billion, but you can't do that with manufacturing stuff. Except now you can. A kid in a dorm room can design some amazing widget, post it on TikTok, sell $1 bajillion of it, and never have to set up a factory or learn how manufacturing works. They just plug into us, and we're their AWS for manufacturing. It's really cool. What would you be looking for international farms partners? So this, we will never do crowdsourced 3D printing. So we'll never do the 3D Hubs model, the Craft Cloud model, any of that kind of stuff, because there's no way to maintain quality control or rapid rate of iteration. Like we change really fast, guys. But for partners internationally, here's the thing with international farms. I don't live in Europe. I don't know the full ramifications of Brexit over the full last few years and that kind of stuff. So we absolutely need international partners. But they would effectively, I don't want to say franchise, but they would be a subsidiary or like a direct partner. But I don't know what the dynamics would be. Like we would call all the shots, but it would be a local-based company with local-based founders. It's a franchise, but it's not a franchise. It's not a franchise, but it is a franchise. Operationally, we need to set up a methodology to where it is clear how to build out a print farm to Slant 3D specs and then continue changing based on Slant 3D specs. Our presumption was that we were going to build these facilities ourselves. I don't think that scales fast enough. So there is a necessity for a print farm type of a model, but then revenue share becomes kind of hairy because we can't run a franchise unprofitably for people because by golly, we're the startup or whatever it was. So that's the problem with the franchise model is kind of the revenue share business model. So it's a question of like, how can your organization own the print farm, but have us buy all the machines, set all the standards, so on and so forth, and you engage with us, and we pay you like a set fee for operation of the print farms? That would be like the dynamic of it, to where it's like an added-on service inside of somebody else's operation, where they have a French LLC or whatever else it was, and that kind of stuff, and are willing to put in 100 machines minimum. And then we would implement them into our systems, and they will print and ship items in a certain period of time. And they will receive some revenue from those items, but it's not necessarily profitable. Like we cannot guarantee demand in a certain locale yet, which is challenging for partners, which is why we have to bear the brunt of the costs there. But the dynamics of getting that done, we haven't hashed out enough yet. I have worked with foreign countries before, and it never works. It's challenging. It's definitely challenging to work in foreign countries. We see this dynamic again in like the Etsy plugin and that kind of stuff too. One of the magic services of the Etsy plugin is that you get international shipping. So European Etsy stores and Shopify stores should plug into us because they then get US distribution without having to ship across an ocean. But there is a difference in the dynamics of the entrepreneurial dynamic between European businesses and US businesses to where we have not cracked the messaging on that. But if we went the opposite direction, I think the dynamic would be different and easier. So yeah, it's challenging because of the cultural differences and the legal ramifications of it. Like setting up another company in another country is challenging. And yeah, we just haven't set up enough of the infrastructure around how to do that yet. Etsy will eventually just pass everyone off. They're just stop messing with their own success. People justifying their salaries by changing things that don't need changing. Giant Robo 77. Etsy's in a weird spot. They do move stuff around without very good communication. They're in a weird spot where they both have very mature businesses operating on it, as well as, but being intended for kind of artisan businesses. That dynamic is hard. So I feel for Etsy in that context. I do not feel for Etsy in their software development. Their software development is challenging. We engage with them very closely through the API and that kind of stuff. Their software organization is difficult. What are your thoughts on extruding your own filament for $1 to $2 per kg versus $10 wholesale for a small business owner? My product only uses a few 3D printed parts and my needs are met by a single printer. You yourself extruding filament. It's not $1 to $2 per kg. That's the first thing I would say. PLA itself, if you're in a small scale, costs between $3 and $4 a pound, and up to like $10 a pound if you're doing small self-extrusion and that kind of stuff. So it's not as alluring as it seems. And then again, you're not valuing your time. because the operation of that extruder, again, is a non-trivial action. Everybody has these, oh, extrude your own filament things, and they're kind of bull, because filament extrusion, as manufacturing processes go, it's very trivial. But as things to do, it's not, but it's not non-trivial. Problems come up, things jam, all the rest of it. And then with an extrusion system, when they fail beautifully and largely. So I'm not really, I do not think that anybody should, in any business, you should not do anything that does not directly impact the quality and utility of your product. Cost reduction shouldn't necessarily be the thing you chase initially until you really, really understand what the costs are. Improve your product, make people love your product more. This can be through content or through improving the product. If any customer that buys your item twice, ask them why and understand that. That's way more valuable than trying to shave another 50 cents off the cost of the product. And by the way, this is a challenge that I have had. I'm an engineer. I believe in cost savings and so on and so forth, but that's not necessarily correct. There are bigger bites from the apple that can be taken through other methodologies. All you would save is cost of shipping and manpower. Yes, yeah, internationally that's what we would save, but time. Scott Galloway says this, like the best businesses are time machines. Like a Tesla with self-driving, kind of lets you check your messages while you're driving, even though you're not supposed to do that. Apple setting up your phone saves you time, therefore you love it more, that kind of thing. Any item or any part of a service, Amazon one-day shipping saves you time waiting for an item. It's true. In a world where time is kind of the main source of currency, like you guys watching this or taking time to watch this podcast. So thank you so much. I'm glad this podcast is good enough to justify your time. Time is the actual currency, not really money. And especially when you're in a world with so much abundance right now, to where money is important, but money is far more common than it has been in any time in history. To where people are buying $6 to $7 lattes, so charging 20 to 30 bucks to them or something is not that big of a deal when that's 5 or 6 cups of coffee. So build a product that saves people time, and that's really, really, really valuable. People want quality, whether they say so or not. Buy nice or buy twice. I wanted to hit Christmas season with a product, but can't because better quality is still eluding me. Okay, so the thing with quality, yes, you improve quality. Minimum viable product. Many people misunderstand this. Quality in and of itself is not how quality gets you into the 99% problem, where it can always be a little bit better, but it'll never be good enough, and you never actually launch. This gets confused with MVP. Minimum viable product sounds like lower quality. Many people consider that lower quality. Oh, I'm going to make a 50% product and then take the big bites out of it. That's not what you do. A minimum viable product is still 85% of the way there, but on a particular function. A minimum viable product is feature limited, but still good quality. And then you add in each new feature with its own good quality each time so that it continues to evolve and improve. If quality is the thing that is stopping you, you should probably launch right now. Literally, because you'll learn more about what parts of quality actually matter. And if you're in a cycle to where you can't fix the quality problems that you have in like 1 to 2 days, then you're being too picky. And you need to get it out there, otherwise it'll never launch. It's kind of like going to the gym. Like, I'm not jacked yet, I'm not going to the gym. How are you going to get jacked? Like, that's the type of philosophy. Like, I'm too scared to go to the gym because I don't have a good body yet. Well, you're not going to get a good body unless you go to the gym. So slob in there and start sweating. That is what you have to do. And that applies the same to product design. Get it out there. Don't launch crap. Make sure it does its job well, but do it in a limited format. And then add on extra stuff into the future. Do you use systems engineering in Slant print farms? Yes. No, Slant 3D is a system company. Like, yes, we design printers, we make filament, we do all the rest of it. But systems are the primary differentiator that we have because anybody can buy 10 or 100 machines, put them on a shelf. But it's all the stuff around those machines that we are way better at than everybody else. Like, how do you make sure that you track a part appropriately? How do you make sure that the part gets to the machine right? How do you make sure that QC is good there? All of that is much more around our secret sauce than the machines themselves. Um, let's see here. Yes, time equals money squared. Very true. Uh, Wanted to thank you for all the CAD tips. You're welcome. Thank you so much for watching. I make 3D printed molds for silicon medical task trainers, and it's completely changed my mold making process. Huge thanks. Oh, interesting. Um, I mean, I disagree. You shouldn't be using molds to make these things. Why aren't you printing them out of TPU? but cool. I haven't heard of anybody doing that kind of stuff. And I'm also kind of surprised that our tips are useful because like we don't talk about like molds or anything like that in this context. So I'd be interested to hear more at some point. Is a functional PET-G part that is not breaking weight-bearing household applications, but I agree. Oh, it's a functional PET-G part that has to not break in a weight-bearing household application. Christmas complaints are my nightmare. Quality is an issue for that. If it's function forward, quality shouldn't be an issue. 0.3 resolution, get it out the door. Add some texture or fuzzy scan or something like that. Get it out the door, man. With Christmas complaints, if it's a function forward part, the only way people will complain is if it does not function. So, and that's very easy to figure out. Not to take over your cast, but I'm interested in knowing what particular products the audience would love to have 3D printed but cannot find on the market. It might be a good way to drum up interest. Okay, so yeah, in the chat, go ahead and answer that question, everybody. But the finding products is a challenge. The easiest way the way many people recommend doing this is you can go to a number of pieces of different software. There's like Allura and other ones to where you can like rank Etsy products and find out which ones are selling well and which ones aren't. And then you sell more of the ones that are selling well. But that becomes not really a product design thing. It becomes a marketing issue of how do you competitively market them. But finding a product that is useful, there's some ways of the lowest hanging fruit on this is there are some softwares where you can go to Amazon and you can find products that are out of stock and then you recreate that. This is basically the spare parts model. You can't do that with spare parts websites because other reasons, cartels and things. But on Amazon, if you can find some old 1990s accessory that doesn't exist anymore, you can do it. The other thing you can do is watch this YouTube channel. Literally, yesterday we did a video around 3D printed prosthetics. This is a wildly underserved market to where you could design hundreds of products, from a hand that holds a screwdriver to a hand that clamps onto a bike to a hand that can go for skydiving to a hand that can dig in a garden, that kind of stuff, to where you can create a really large selection for a group of people that you can come to understand really well. Do that because no one is, like, seriously. And again, going back to the accessories for particular tool markets. And if you want to see examples of Etsy stores that do this very well, go over the Slant Print on Demand YouTube channel and watch those videos. We review Etsy stores and talk about what they're doing well, what they're doing wrong, but it also gives people a lot of ideas of what can be made. So that's a good place for idea generation. Any chance of dropping prices on the Etsy plugin in the future? What are you making? What's so expensive? Right now, we consider the Etsy plugin to be really affordable. Like, the minimum cost on anything is $3, but if you're selling stuff for $3 on Etsy, you're not profitable anyway. But yeah, what are you selling there? Boaz the ostrich? Boaz the ostrich? I apologize. I'm making cup holder adapters. It's like $22 to print. Are they cup holder adapters? So is it like something that goes from a small cup holder to like a Yeti holder or something like that? Is it something like that? Or is it like a dual cup holder thing? I don't mean to have you like, okay, so it's an adapter sizer. Do me a favor, if you want, send us an email at info@slant3d.com with a file, and we'll do a direct file evaluation because we'd like to see whenever something goes wrong or seems to be out of whack, we want to double check that the algorithm is working right and all the rest of it. And we just do that with like a visual inspection. So send that over. Because yeah, something that's just like this, I would generally anticipate to be somewhere in like the $10 to $15 range. But if you have some weird sort of geometry in it or require a bunch of support, that can be what jacks up price a bunch. That being said, if you're making a Yeti adapter, it should be $29 anyway. Have the margin inside of there. This is a challenge that a lot of people have, is that they don't realize the value of the product when it's being sold. And they want to go for as cheap as possible. Don't do that. You can very often charge much more than you think, especially if it's for a particular category or group or brand group. Okay, let's see here. I need some adapters to make the cups in a 2017 CRV not suck. Yeah, that type of a thing. That right there, accessory for a particular group of people. CRV cup holders that all work. Cup holders is huge. And by the way, you can make a cup holder that, yes, fits into every type of car, and then market towards that particular type of car, and then make like variations of cup holders. So like we did a product a few years ago which were cup holders that like a cup holder that holds change, and it was like a piggy bank cup holder, and a cup holder that held your phone, of course, a cup holder that held pins, so it was like just a bunch of holes in it. Like these can be very easily done, these can be very easily done. And actually, in the context of being able to model without modeling, on the Slant POD website, we're going to start releasing STL file packets for like starter kits. So like here are cookie cutters that you can start up an Etsy store with. Here are night lights that you can start up an Etsy store with. We will also be releasing ChatGPT prompts that will create 3D models. And that's a discussion for down the line again. We'll start pushing on that a lot more kind of in the spring. But for people who aren't familiar with CAD, we will have AI-based tools that will make CAD a lot easier. How you got your economic knowledge having come from an engineering background? Well, I run a business. You learn fast. The best way to learn how to do stuff is to go do it. Yes, I'm an engineer, but I read a lot of books, did a lot of practice, and I've been doing this now for quite a while. Like I started my first company out of school was in 2015, 2016, and I've been doing it ever since. Slant 3D was spun out in 2019. So you get economic knowledge from doing it, but also just operating from first principles. Like people want stuff better, faster, cheaper. Cheaper is a bad one to do, but faster and better are both objectively observable. You don't want to necessarily go design vases, but it's a way of getting it done. Other guys who are engineers who have flipped into like businessy type of guys, Travis at Shop Nation is a really good example. Make anything. No, Angus doesn't really fall into this category because he's a content creator. Angus over at Maker's Muse used to be an industrial designer, and now he does YouTube. So there's a lot of guys to talk to about this, but literally, if you want to learn about how to sell and how to market, start following those guys, watching those guys. The gurus, regardless of their questionable intentions, still have useful information. So like Alex Hormozi, Subi Sabri. I'm sorry, dude. He's an Australian who talks about marketing. They're both correct. They both give good advice that is actionable. Oh, and you probably made a lot of mistakes. Yes. No, you will make a mistake all the time. And in fact, you guys are going to hear about one of the biggest mistakes we made probably here in like 1 to 2 weeks. Subscribe below. We're going to do the story of all of our software plugins and just lay out in gory detail everything that we've gone through and what we've gotten to. You learn by failing, not necessarily by succeeding. To a limited degree. Success can have tremendous insights to it, but failure is a much clearer indicator. Because if you're wildly successful, it's tough to tell what is making you successful until something breaks. And when something breaks, then you're able to fix that and accelerate growth more. Are there products you've run into that are optimized for injection molding that couldn't find an efficient way to change it for printing? Also vice versa? No. Almost every product can be designed both directions. The biggest mistake everybody makes is trying to take an injection molded design like this and then try to 3D print it. That's dumb, stupid, and always fails. Always fails. The 3D printing industry has made the mistake of trying to match injection molding. So like everybody gets into the SLA, SLS, that kind of stuff, and is like, oh yeah, you can make injection molding quality parts with this. And I'm like, who the hell cares? You're abandoning all the advantages of printing by trying to make this kind of stuff. And the analogy I use is like the transition from the steam engine to the electric motor. Like in the early days when electric motors first came out, most factories were run on steam engines. And you had this giant steam power plant down in the basement that ran a big old axle that belts went off of to run all the machines throughout the factory. And it was all built around this big old steam engine. So when electric motors came along, they said, cool, put in a big old electric motor instead of a steam engine. And they ran it all through, and they're like, well, the electric motor doesn't really give us that much better benefit than the steam engine. I can haul coal, or I can burn coal in the back to run a generator that runs the electric motor. But then they realized, oh, we can make little electric motors that go on each machine, and then we just have to run wires through the factory and plug it into a wall. That's really cool now. And now you can reconfigure the factory and create new layouts. The factory doesn't have to be built around the power plant. The power plant is on each machine. And it took 10, 20 years for that to realize. And printing is in that dynamic. How this is designed for injection molding is restricted by molding. But if you design for printing, you get all kinds of cool new advantages. Okay, next thing. I'm designing my own novelty pieces for centerpiece category. How much to check my design and quote me a price on POD? Upload it. It immediately quotes it. Go to the prototyping app on the Slant 3D website, or set up the Etsy plugin or the Shopify plugin, and then just upload iterations of your file. They instantly quote. You don't have to ask us, you don't have to talk to us, nothing at all. Just upload it. It instantly quotes. If 3D printing becomes more widespread as a manufacturing process, do you think it will eventually have some sort of Bible like the Machinist Handbook, to name a few? So, not to toot our own horn. No, yes, it absolutely will. There are many fundamental rules and tricks around design for 3D printing that already exist. The challenge right now is designing for the different 3D printing processes. So there's not a dominant process right now. So I can write a textbook around injection molding and generally cover most topics around mold design. And abstract it away from the individual like materials or types of molds. Like, oh, are you using a foam-filled mold? Are you using an aluminum mold, steel mold, blah, 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 the different techniques of molding. Right now, the different techniques of 3D printing haven't really gelled out. We have had the discussion multiple times of how do we take the tips and tricks of this YouTube channel and like the data from Tangle Testing, the Tangle Testing YouTube channel, and combine them into what is effectively a textbook. It wouldn't be like an IP style textbook or an IPC A610 textbook, but it would be a baseline that we could then expand over time, and hopefully would allow us to be in the room where it happens when those textbooks are written. There are a number of 3D printing books out there, but most of them focus on like 3D printing troubleshooting because they're still written from 5 years ago when printers, that was the main problem with printers, not really the design of the part. The reason we have not done the book yet is right now YouTube takes a lot of our time. YouTube works fine. And most of the tips and tricks that we have on the YouTube go into blog posts on the website where we like screenshot stuff out and that kind of thing. So converting it to a book doesn't have a huge amount of value yet. But it's kind of necessary so that somebody has a reference book that they can just flip open whenever they need to. But that dynamic is also changing too with like AI, because we're like, could we just take all of our blog posts, shove them into an AI or a custom GPT, and then you talk to that and ask your question when you're thinking of it. And then it's also conversational, which is better than a book. The AIs aren't very good at graphic presentation right now, but give that a week and it'll be fixed. When we use the Etsy plugin, how do you get paid? Does Etsy send you cash automatically? With the Etsy plugin, when you upload a file, the cost to print the item is shown. That's what we're paid. Then you price the item whatever you want on Etsy, and the difference between your price on Etsy and our cost to make, that's how much money you make. So that's how you do it. You just upload a file and it's like, oh, it costs $10 to make. Well, I'm going to sell it for 15. So you make 5 and then you pay us 10 to make it for you. And then shipping fees and Etsy fees and so on and so forth are all in there, but the customer generally pays those. So that's how we're paid. We're paid for the cost of making it, and we tell you exactly what the cost of making it is as soon as you upload the file. I want to 3D print rock climbing holds, but the default settings are not strong enough. When we'll be able to change walls? Microgeometry is much harder on curved surfaces. Oh, rock climbing rocks and holds are a really good category. Change settings inside of the app or our plugins. We're really, 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 really stringent about adding on more settings and features inside of the apps because they become confusing. Someone who's a pro 3D printer will want to go in there and I want to set the infill from 19% to 18%. But a new user just wants to know, does this look good? Is it strong enough? So we're working with those dynamics of how to do this cleanly. The actual API, the software integration, will start to have more power in the new year. The plugins will, the main diversification that will happen over there is materials, to where like we'll introduce TPU and that kind of stuff at some point in the future because we just need to. But as far as settings changes, the only thing we will probably do is we might have the difference between I don't know. I don't know how we're going to do this. Because like some critical features that we would like to have in the plugin at some point are like fuzzy skin, thick walls, solid, super strong, and cosmetic kind of stuff. But doing those in a way that is cost effective, clean enough, without creating too much decision fatigue on the part of the users is the challenge that we have. Oh no, rock climbing molds don't need to be molded. No, there's not a liability there at all. Rock climbing molds can easily be 3D printed and be just fine. The engineering margins on those are exceptional. Made a bunch of... Here's the thing, guys. Liability exists with every product, with every manufacturing process all the way through. If that is the thing that is stopping you, that's not a reason to be stopped. Liability is always there. I can kill my brother with this. And by golly, the injection molding wasn't tough enough when I was beaten in a nail or whatever it was. It's always there. Okay, let's see here. How can I partner with Slant 3D in East Africa? Do you see furniture where your plugin it works in? I have a so Africa is an interesting place for 3D printing farms in that yes, they're absolutely necessary because 3D printing farms effectively do what cell phones did. So like Africa didn't have to go through building telegraph wires and then phone wires and then fiber optics and then went to wireless and Starlink. Like all the first world countries had to. Africa has a huge advantage in that you get to skip ahead in technology, and 3D printing is that skip ahead. You didn't have to build molding and then this, and then you could just get to skip ahead to 3D printing farms. Problem is that Africa is an underdeveloped economy to where it is tough for an organization like us to work over there. That being said, because again, like the economics of it, that being said, the model has been done by like companies like Zipline to where they've had sustainable business models in African countries to where they've been able to maintain it. And we've been able to help. What we would probably have to do if we wanted to do Africa, we'd have to create effectively a whole separate company that is focused on the economics of Africa in order to make that work. To where it's like a division of Slant 3D, but it's not necessarily directly part of the main company. Because like our goal is to be an IPO'd company here in about 3 more years. And we have to chase certain economic targets in that regard. Other questions? Any other questions? Let's see, scrolling through stuff. I've noticed the circular top and bottom layer pattern fills look better on circular objects such as pots, and be a nice setting in the apps. Oh, well, the default setting inside of our apps is the grid infill because it's the most reliable and universal. And people who are using like default settings always fall into it. How are non-production volumes managed? Through one of the best options for 3D printing was to make prototypes to be able to iterate ultra fast and make larger scale, and later scale this. If you want a non-production volume with us, we have a prototyping app. You upload it, it automatically quotes the price for you, and you can just buy it right there. It'll show up 4 or 5 days later, or 5 to 8 days later. I forgot about shipping time. So that's how we do it. All of the prototyping stuff is automated. Even inside of the Etsy app, if you want to order your own item from yourself, we have a prototyping feature that we just released a couple weeks ago. It's really sick. To where you can upload your items, you get the quote for it, and then you just say, order prototype. And it'll say, like, what color do you want that prototype in? And you order it for yourself, and then you can get all the variations of your product. So those non-production volumes are all automated. You can just upload it. And then their production volumes we manually quote. But for us, for in the production quantities, for it to be manually quoted, the project has to be at least $1,000. Anything smaller than that can go through our automated systems and work very well. And they ship faster, quite frankly. It's faster than emailing us, and then we email back and so on. Okay, let's see. What else? Oh, thanks, man. Yeah. The team will take a look at it here over the next day or two. Once they get back in tomorrow, I might even be able to take a look at it today if I have time. But I do need to take a break some while because we got 6 more weeks of Christmas to get through, and I have to survive. Wide grid is the default. I've always found gyroid to be more reliable and the best all-rounder. Gyroid is a misleading infill. It has great compressive strength, but the dynamics of it with the rest of the part are not as good as the world would kind of define. Yeah. PetG is on the prototyping services. Yeah, PetG is inside of the Etsy plugins, all the rest of it, that kind of stuff. So yeah, they're over there. And if you're just looking for prototyping, doing it in PLA is just a cheaper way of doing it because PetG is a little bit more expensive. So if you're just looking for like shape or like verification that the Slant 3D, you can do it before doing production. That'd be the way to go. All right. Let's see here. Discussion topics for the stuff. We already kind of covered discussion topics. We were going to talk about Etsy and that kind of thing. Again, here at the Christmas season, turn on your ads if you're an Etsy seller. We will also continue to do these live streams like this, and hopefully they start up a little bit better than this one did. And then but we want people to have contact with us as much as possible so that we're helping with these types of issues of like, it's quoting weird or it's not starting up or how hard is it, that kind of thing. We want just as many resources available as possible for folks who want to use one of the plugins to make sure that we're taking care of you well enough. And also, if you have a problem with the plugin, please chat very publicly right here so that we're held accountable to it. This is also why I'm doing it live. We can't delete comments or hide them or ignore them or anything else if there's a problem. So please air the dirty laundry because again, kind of back to the previous discussion, if we're not failing, we don't know what we're not doing wrong and we need the feedback loop on this. Will we get transparent PetG at some point? At some point. I do not have a timeline on that. Would love to have you all make a CAD platform. Oh. Interesting idea. No, yeah. No, that's a very interesting idea. Okay. Other updates. Right now, everything's doing fine. Obviously, the big old spike happened this week for anybody who is on the Etsy plugin. Generally, on Black Friday, it's possible. We're trying to avoid this, but it's possible that lead times for products could extend slightly on Black Friday because you have the giant increase that's happened like 2 days ago to where like just huge amounts of demand comes through. And then on Black Friday, you have another giant increase, and that carries on through to Cyber Monday and then kind of starts to fall off with Christmas. We also expect a whole bunch of users to translate over to us about December 5th, because that's generally when their print farms become too slow. So we expect a whole bunch of people to suddenly sign up and start using it about that time. Our goal with the Etsy plugins and everything else is to make sure that we are fully operational and maintaining, again, that 5-day processing time maximum on all orders up to December 20th. If we're staying really ahead of it and everything is going well, we may release next day shipping as an option, or next day shipping after processing as an option, so that we can carry on just a little bit closer to Christmas. Because again, these tools are meant to allow you guys to maximize your revenue on these platforms, by not having to worry about supply constraints, which almost everybody always runs into. So that is the goal that we have set for ourselves. We will communicate very clearly in the apps. Again, we have these live streams, and inside of the plugins themselves, we have like little notification icons, especially on the Etsy. We will, of course, have blog posts, the slantpod.com website, great place for all the information, for help around photos and all kinds of other information. The Slant 3D Printing YouTube channel, we're going to be releasing content over there on the regular about business operations and that kind of stuff. Open Fusion. Do anyone know who to navigate all the legal stuff like tax stuff? I'm from outside US and use Slant 3D for printing and shipping inside US. None of that. All that stuff is handled by the platform that you're on. So the taxes and that kind of thing will all be automated through Etsy or Shopify. You don't have to worry about those kind of things. And if you're a US seller selling into Europe, the only challenge you have is international shipping. You just need to make sure that your users are paying for the international shipping tax, because that won't necessarily be applied through the plugins. So yeah, just make sure that they're being charged for that on the front, and you're not absorbing it on the back. That's the one thing to be aware of. On the CAD platform, you could just fork free CAD, might save some work. Nope. That's not the. We're working on a CAD platform. We're working on CAD. It will be unlike anything else that exists. It will not be like any CAD that you've used before. Yeah, I'll leave it there. I have a complex and unique 3D printed model that I have been designing for months, ready to market it. I am worried about copycats or the file replicated if I send it out to 3D print farms. Thoughts? Well, the very simple thing is send it to our print farm. None of our files leave the place at all. No. Like I said earlier in the show, we don't even film our print farm when there are other clients' parts on it to make sure that nobody can see what's going on. I cannot speak to that to other print farms, but like if you want to see our privacy policy and that kind of stuff, like we have that, all those things. But we don't move files around or anything else at all, because yes, it's IP. As far as dealing with copycats when you list it, my philosophy on this is that if a copycat can make your product better than you, why are you so bad at your job? And that sounds harsh, but that is the thing. If it is your idea, how can a copycat imitation knockoff do your job better than you do? So this requires being very involved and very engaged with your product, so continuously improving it, engaging with your customers, creating a fantastic experience, having better product photos, that kind of thing, because the copycats very often are in for the quick money. So if you do a better job and do it for longer, you will outlast them, because copycats have very short attention spans. They'll see your product and then they'll see the next shiny thing and then they'll go work on that, and then their version of your product will degrade and become less valuable. So long as you are consistent and continue to work on it and improve it, you will outlast them. Because the rationale, this applies to business in general. If you're willing to go for 5 or 10 years on something, you will outlast 99% of everybody else. Because everybody else is like, oh, it's too hard, I'm gonna go get a job, I'm gonna give up, I didn't see anything in 6 months, I'm not a billionaire. You have to suffer through that time. Me, operationally, like Slant 3D is 5 years old right now, and technically even older than that because it was part of the previous company. So I've been working on this now, not a full decade, but coming up on one. And And we're just starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel to where we're scaling up in a way that's useful. But it took a long time. So do not create a business or create a product if you're in for a quick buck, because that almost never occurs. You have to commit to it for an extended period of time. And if you do that, you have a very high probability of success. Not guaranteed success, but very high probability of success. Let's see here. Which CAD software do you use? Can you handle data from CATIA or Creo? Export it to a step file. Everybody can handle CATIA or Creo. Export a step file or an STL file. The plugins require an STL or OBJ file. So do those, but if you're doing like a production quote, send over a step file. That's the way to make sure that you're not platform specific. As far as the particular software that we use all of them. Like there's, every one of them has an advantage to where you kind of need them. We use a lot of Autodesk products because we're getting, in product design, Autodesk is better because there's better kind of surface modeling sort of tools and rendering. But if you're doing like mechanical engineering, SolidWorks really good, that kind of stuff. And CATIA and Creo. CATIA is an aerospace software. Creo was designed by HP. I had to use both of those. I originally came from aerospace. I was trained on CATIA, went over to Autodesk, had to learn SolidWorks for a few projects, and then Creo I learned at an internship when I was working in the basement of HP on warehouse robots and that kind of thing. So I didn't realize I've touched like all the CAD platforms. Wow. That's just a realization that's only just like hit right now. Like I've used almost all of them. FreeCAD I've used, AutoSCAD, all of them. Wow. Please add shipping tracking to prototypes. I ordered a week ago and I have got no updates from where it is. There are shipping updates. You should be receiving an email from the prototyper that sends you your order confirmation number, and then you paste that back into the app and it gives you tracking. We don't send tracking along inside the prototyper because it's just a more minimalist app. But we give you an estimated delivery time. So if you ordered a week ago, it should be showing up any day now. Right now, yeah, the POD orders and everything else have been printing in about 1 to 3 days on average here. So, and then it takes like 3 to 4 days to ship depending on where you are in the world. But yeah, if you take your order confirmation number and then paste it back into the app, it'll give you your tracking info. I would love your tips, tricks, etc. Be put into a Kindle book, update it annually. A friend does this in his book on international taxes. It doesn't sell many, but enough for his business. Yeah, we've thought about the book before. Updating it annually is a lot. If we do a book, we're going to want it to be evergreen. And 3D printing as a discipline is something that can be evergreen. Because anything we would talk about around like business development or the actual design of the products, FDM is FDM, and FDM will always be FDM. The principles that we teach largely on this channel and that kind of stuff apply to printers 10 years ago and will apply to FDM printers 10 years from now, because FDM is FDM. They're designed around the process. They're not designed around any specific tools of the day. This is why we don't talk about slicers or slicer tricks or any of the rest of that stuff, because those change too much and are just terrible. You receive on the POD, you receive a confirmation code. Take that code, copy and paste it back into the app. There's like a little tracking link inside of the print on demand prototyper app, and it'll pop up your tracking info. Certified in SolidWorks, I absolutely hate it. Some things just don't make sense, and it's clearly showing its age. SolidWorks is showing its age. That is for sure. Okay. All right. We're coming up on tail end of it now, guys. We probably have time for about 2 more questions. And then, yeah, we got through it. Thank you all for stuck through the beginning of getting all the networking issues kind of sorted out. We got it done. Bigger 3D printers coming. No. Standard size is standard size. Standard size will be standard size for a long time. Bigger printers will not. We will not. Nope. Lots of reasons. Have we done a video about this? Probably not. But yeah, we won't be doing larger format printers. 85% of products can fit inside of the build volume that we have right now. Anything larger will have to wait for some other service. Some competitor can start up, create a whole API, and have a large format share printing thing. TPU and the API. Yes. Timeline, I'm not going to say right at the moment. I don't really. Can we tell about your printer tolerance and overhang? 45 degrees, all FDM standard there. Can you straighten your sound dampening panels? That's the angle of the camera. So they're spaced out for the camera angle over here. We probably will readjust them now that we're putting the camera angle down here for these. Okay, let's see. Can we please do multi-plate prints? Teleport. Teleport is coming out next week. Multicolor or multiple parts with different colors, multiple parts on multiple plates will be doable on Teleport there. I apologize. I cannot read Russian, Ukrainian, Slavic. I apologize. Okay. Alrighty then, everybody. We're probably going to close it out right there then. Like and subscribe if you haven't, all the YouTuber things. Like I said, we're going to do this live stream almost every week throughout this entire season so that you all can get a look at us and engage with us. We'll get through all the chunks from now on, but this will probably, and if we can sustain this and keep it rolling, we'll probably sustain it into the new year. And we'll play around with the format of the chat and the layout of the show and that kind of stuff too. So hopefully that covers it all. Thank you so much all for watching, but I'll let you all get back to your Sunday and have a great day, everybody.